Hello and welcome to episode 7 of Walking Thoughts, where I share the things that pop into my head while I'm out for my exercise walks. I hope that you'll stick around, like what you see, subscribe to the channel and like my videos, and I'll be right back with today's Walking Thought. This evening I decided to lighten things up again. A few episodes ago I talked about one of my favorite musical groups. Tonight I'm going to talk about my two favorite dramatic television shows of all time. And some people might be a little surprised at someone who's a professing Christian having these as their favorite two shows, but they are. So we'll talk about it just a little bit. And I used to say one was number one, the other one had become number two. Now they're 1A and 1B, and the 1B has one more season, so it's possible that after that season 1B could move up into the 1A slot and 1A would move down to 1B. Now, without any further ado, the shows I'm talking about, 1A and 1B respectively, are Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Some people, I know, their reaction to Breaking Bad was, oh, it's so dark and it glamorizes and glorifies the meth trade, and it's just a bad example and Christians shouldn't watch it. And I understand the criticism, but when I hear that, I think either they haven't watched it themselves, or maybe they're not understanding the depth of what the story is really saying. And I'm not saying that to be condescending or anything. I'm just liking to point out that Breaking Bad does not glamorize the meth trade at all. I'm going to take a brief break. I'm walking on the walking path again, and someone has parked their car on the walking path. Highly not legal. Hopefully it's not an emergency, but just thought that was an interesting little interlude. So back to Breaking Bad. Walter White, the creator of the show, Vince Gilligan, has said that he imagined Walter White as Mr. Chips turns into Scarface. And for those who might not know, those are references to two other older movies. Mr. Chips was a teacher who was basically a good guy, and of course Scarface was a notorious cocaine dealer in Miami, played by Al Pacino. And if I'm remembering correctly, Mr. Chips was played, as a movie from the 60s, Mr. Chips was played by Sidney Poitier, I believe. I've never seen it. I have seen Scarface, and I don't recommend it for a number of reasons. But Walter White was never a good person. Walter White suffered from the very beginning of the show with the gross sin of pride. And that's very obvious fairly early on in the show, and it really leads to all of the downward trends in his life, the troubles that come from him manufacturing methamphetamine and developing a network of distributors there in the Albuquerque, New Mexico area. So, you know, he wasn't a good guy. And Breaking Bad is one of the best illustrations of the Reformed doctrine of total depravity that I think I've ever seen. Total depravity is one of the 5 points of Calvinism, and it doesn't mean that we are as bad as we can be. It just means that every one of us has sin in our lives that touches every aspect of our being. The way we are, the way we act, the way we think, and Walter White exemplified that. He wasn't a good guy who broke bad. He was a bad guy who, when faced with a tough situation, decided to feed his ego and his pride to accomplish what he wanted. I'm not going to spoil the storyline because I really do encourage you to watch it if you've never seen it. But there's a plot point in the very first season that if he had just swallowed his pride, he would have been able to avoid what he perceived as the need to make the money that he was able to make manufacturing and dealing meth. So, and then Better Call Saul, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, although it's the spinoff that still has one season left. It's a prequel to Breaking Bad, and it follows the trajectory of the character we met in Breaking Bad named Saul Goodman, and we learn basically how Saul Goodman became Saul Goodman. So that's my recommendation for tonight is Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. Give it a chance. I know the original versions on AMC, the language was very tame because they had restrictions. I think if you buy it or if you watch it on Netflix, they've put back in some of the language that wasn't in the original airing. But I don't find the language to be that severe in it. A little warning, very first episode, there is brief topless nudity of a woman. And I want to say it's either season 3 or 4. There's another episode where one of the main characters and his friends go to a strip club, and I don't think there's any technical nudity, but it's practically topless nudity in that scene too. So definitely not a show to watch around your children, but worth it for anyone who enjoys good dramatic television and Christians who want to understand how our sin affects even people who the world might consider good. That's all I have for tonight. I'll be back at the end of the walk with the workout summary. Tonight's workout summary, I walked 3.12 miles in exactly 53 minutes and burned 484 calories. The interesting thing is the last few days my distance has been slightly different each night, despite the fact that I've done the exact same route. I'm sure that's just glitches in the GPS on the phone, but I'm walking a consistent route that's about a 5K, and hopefully my time will get better and better as I get in better shape. That's all I have for this evening. Remember, watch Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and don't be a jerk. Good night.